Hey everybody, Rahul Shah, Doc Shah Financial, and in today's video, I'm going to answer the question of what should you do with your old 401k? Now, a lot of people have this question and it's sort of a confusing topic for many, but it's really simple. And by the end of this video, I'm sure that if you don't know what you'll do with your old 401k, you'll at least have a much better idea of what you might do with it. So there's really three options that you have. Okay, you could change your name, move to a different country, or no, you've really got three main options. You can leave it, cash out, or roll it over. So let's go step by step through each option and the pros and cons. Okay, option number one is you can just leave your old 401k right where it is, right with the old employer. Not every employer allows this, particularly if your 401k balance is really low, like if it's under $5,000, they may actually not let you just leave the money there. But if it's a larger sum of money, they might let you leave it and you could just keep it invested in whatever it's already invested in. You won't be able to make any additional contributions because that plan is no longer accessible for that feature, but whatever's in there, you can leave it and just let it grow. Now, what are the pros of this option? Well, number one is it doesn't require any immediate action on your behalf. I don't know if this is really a pro as much as it is procrastination, but if you're in a transitory phase of life, if you just have a lot of things going on in your personal life and this is something that you can't really tackle right now, then that is a benefit. You can just leave it there and you don't really have to do anything about it. It'll just stay invested as it was invested when you left it. And again, assuming that the account balance isn't too low, you'll be able to just leave it there and let it grow in whatever investments it's already in. The second pro is access to institutional grade fund managers. So you might have been at a Fortune 500 company and they might have recruited really good fund managers for their 401k platform. And maybe you move to a smaller private company that doesn't have the same access or the same luxury of having those really good 401k fund managers. So you might want to leave your money in there. This might take a bit of research digging around, to see who's managing it and what their track record is. But that is another pro if, you did leave a really big company. You might want to leave it in that 401k if you feel like those fund managers are just better than whatever your current situation would be. Okay, so let's go over one of the cons, which is you have limited flexibility in your investment choices. The 401k is very generalized, so there's a lot of options, but they are all sort of one size fits all. And you can't really buy individual stocks or other individual securities in a 401k. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. That's actually probably a good thing because it keeps a lot of people from self-destructing their own retirement portfolio. But that is sort of a con in that you are limited in the choices that you have, and you might not find a choice that really resonates with your particular risk tolerance or your investing strategy, or even your time horizon. The second con is plan fees. Some 401ks do have higher fees between the management fee and the administrative fee and whatever other fee, parking fee. I'm making that up. But whatever other fees are involved in managing that 401k for that entire platform, those fees can add up pretty quickly. And so you might not like that. So if you can't find it, easily in your statements, check your summary plan description or just email your HR department and get an idea of what the fees were. Because if they're really high, it might be advantageous to not leave it there. But if they're really low, maybe you might consider leaving it there. So definitely check what the cost is to leaving it in your old 401k. The other con is sort of a psychological con, and it's this out of sight, out of mind concept. If you have one or more than one old 401ks, you might not really be keeping track of those accounts and logging in and rebalancing and checking how the performance of those funds that you've invested in are doing. And so it's just a lot to tackle. And so a lot of people, when it's not easily accessible to them and they don't really have it in front of their face, they just tend to forget about it. And that could be kind of dangerous, especially as you get older and you need to move to some less risky, less volatile investments. You don't want to be kind of fumbling through a bunch of different old 401ks and it's been years since you checked up on one and all of a sudden you have this very rude awakening on what the new portfolio balance is. So out of sight, out of mind is definitely a con if you're keeping a bunch of these old 401ks. Okay, and option number two is cash out your 401k. So it's pretty self-explanatory. That would just be that you take the entire balance in your 401k and you take it on as a distribution. So you move it to your bank, it's now in your possession. And this is a fully taxable event. It's going to get taxed at your marginal tax rate. And if you are not over 59.5 or 55 in some cases, it's also subject to a 10% penalty. So you could take a cash out distribution. That's option two. Let's take a look at the pros and cons of that option. Okay, so there's really one pro, and it's that you have immediate access to your funds. If you really needed it, if you were sort of falling on hard times and you needed the cash and you're willing to take on the ordinary income tax hit and potentially a penalty, well then of course that's a pro, because if you need the money, you need the money. And hopefully if you're watching this, you're not in that position, but that would be really the main pro of taking on that cash distribution. Okay, so now let's talk about the cons. The really big con is your loss of all of the deferred tax growth. See, in a 401k, as you guys probably know, but I'll go ahead and reiterate, you are putting money in pre-tax, assuming it's a traditional 401k. You do have a Roth option, but we're gonna focus on the traditional 401k here. You're putting money in pre-tax, so you're getting a tax deduction on those contributions. And the idea is that it's gonna grow tax deferred, and then when you take it out, hopefully it's a much higher number, but you're in a lower tax bracket, so you're just arbitraging 2 points in time that you're paying tax in your life, and you're hoping that you're deferring it when your tax rate's higher, and then you're actually withdrawing it and paying the ordinary income tax when your tax rate is lower. What a lot of people do is with their old 401k, when they just cash out this 401k, they might not realize, but they might be in a higher tax bracket now than they were originally when they were actually contributing. Because see, normally in retirement, people expect to be in a lower tax bracket. They might not, but they expect to. That's the whole point, right? You're contributing when you're working in a higher tax bracket, and you pull it out when you're in a lower tax bracket. But if you're still working, right, and you've got this old 401k, maybe the job you got right now is paying you a lot more. So you're in a much higher tax bracket. So if you just cash out of your old 401k, well, you've done the reverse of what the point of the 401k is, because you've now taken this distribution at this high tax bracket and you deferred it at a lower tax bracket, and you're going to wind up paying a lot more in taxes. So that is a very big con when you take this distribution, is that you could wind up paying a lot in taxes, and in some cases, if you're not careful, an additional 10% penalty. So you have to be very careful with option number 2. All right, and option number 3, drum roll. Okay, it's kind of late, so I have to entertain myself here. Option number 3 is going to be roll over your 401k into an IRA. This is a very common thing that people do. They take their old 401k, they bring it into an IRA. Okay, so what are the pros of doing an IRA rollover? Well, the first pro, and this actually could be a con here too, but the first pro is that you have greater investment choice. So you can pretty much invest in whatever you feel like in an IRA. I mean, there are obviously some limitations, but there are thousands of investment options. You can buy individual stocks, you can buy all kinds of bonds, you can buy all kinds of different securities in your IRA account that you couldn't buy in a 401k, because remember, the 401k are just sort of like mosh pits of investments that are presented to you, and you kind of have your pick. And that's not a bad thing, but IRA is, it's endless. It's like going to the Cheesecake Factory and ordering something off their menu. But the reason that's also a con is because you can easily self-destruct your portfolio if you're not careful. See, the 401k is managed by a fund manager. So what's being presented to you at least passes a rationally comprised group of investments, right? Like, what's being presented to you is not like they're just giving you a portfolio of all Bitcoin and saying, hey, put your retirement money on this, right? It's not speculative in nature. It's designed to be a little bit less risky, a little bit more diversified, broader base, so that you're not seeing wild fluctuations in your 401k. But in an IRA, you're on your own. And so if you go out and you take your 401k rollover and you put it in really bad stocks, you're going to lose a fortune. And so you have to be very careful. And that's why working with someone like an investment manager such as myself can be a great benefit, but that's not the point of this video. The point is that if you're going to self-manage your IRA, make sure you know what you're getting into, because people tend to be like a kid in a candy shop in these accounts where they have all this newfound freedom and they're just going out and buying one of everything. And that's just not how you want to construct a portfolio. But depending on how you look at it, if it's a pro or con, you do have a lot more investment choice and flexibility in an IRA account. The other pro is that you can structure your IRA to have significantly lower fees than your 401k. If you're self-managing your IRA, then you can choose if you want to invest in low-cost ETF funds, and because there's no management fee, you're going to wind up paying much less. Well, there is a management fee, but it's not to the same extent as in a 401k. But you're going to wind up paying much less in your IRA in fees than you would have in your 401k. Again, you want to consider the pros and cons. If you feel like you can't be trusted with your own money, it doesn't matter what the fees are if you're just destroying your capital. So you might still want to pay somebody to have them manage it for you. But the point I want to make is that you do have the ability, the option to set up your IRA and structure it so that you do have significantly less fees than your old 401k. And really the best pro is consolidation. And it's so important. It's something that people overlook a lot. When you have 8 different 401ks, that might be excessive, but maybe some of you watching have 3, 4, 5 old 401ks. That's 5 logins, 5 accounts that you might need to rebalance, 5 statements you need to keep checking, 5, all kinds of endless amount of things you have to look at in each 5 of those accounts. when you have an IRA and you can consolidate all of your old 401ks, because remember, you can have one IRA and bring in all your old 401ks and funnel them onto this account. You have a very clear picture of your financial standing, and it becomes easy to rebalance if that's the strategy you're using. It becomes easy to see what your RMDs are. I mean, can you imagine if you had 6 different 401ks and you got to start pulling RMDs from all these accounts and calculating for each account? It would be a pain. It would be a nightmare. So it is a lot easier to have everything in one account. And you might not be at the phase of life yet where you're worrying about RMDs, but either way, to have a clear picture of your financial standing in one place is going to make a night and day difference. Guys, you don't want to make personal finance complicated. It's supposed to be easy. That's how you get good at it. So if you want to make it easy on yourself, consolidate your accounts. And the con is really the first thing that I mentioned, which is the lack of structure and guidance. If you're not careful, you can really destroy your capital in this account. So you have to be careful. You got to know what you're doing if you're just going to take on this IRA, which is an individual retirement account. Individual meaning that you are the person who's going to be managing it. It's in your sole name, and you got to know what you're doing. But that's really the main con with the IRA rollover. Okay, guys, so there you have it. 3 things you can do with your old 401k. I hope you guys have a better idea of how it works now and what option might be best for you. If you need help with this or any financial planning topic, investment management, tax planning, just shoot me an email, Raul@DocshaFinancial.com. I'd love to hear from you in your personal situation and how I could potentially help you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.